We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. I know y'all tired of it, but we got a new season of The Pass. Welcome to season 8, the Mamba Year. Podcast available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of your podcast platforms. Here you'll get a dose of content related to tech, the productivity world, and most importantly, how to be a better you. The theme for this year, personally, is receiving grace. And we definitely want to do better with receiving it and being open to being a better us from who we were a year ago. So this is season 8 of The Pass, and I hope you all enjoy.
I've accepted somehow that, okay, there we go. I think I'm becoming in an intertwined crossroads between doing podcasts and doing walkcasts and journaling all in one, and unknowingly realizing that I've made them all a group or a tribe, if you will. And the reason I'm saying that, or the reason that I'm pointing that out, is because the last few days I've needed this time to just be. And for many people, being is not their strong suit. The end. I'm here. Hey, good morning. Always love when I'm trying to do something and it's like, wait, it's not just me that gets up early like a madman. In reality, I know it's not, but there are those times where I have to accept where life has me. Today is the big day. When I say the big day, I mean it'll be the conversion of the vertical stand and the vertical desk. I am negotiating if I will do my first podcast at home from the desk, or have the desk for a few days and then do a unpack or talk about how I feel about it. And let's face it, everyone who's anyone, I think it's, and I talked about this a little bit in my TikTok video, but I didn't talk about it really at all. The craze and the wave involving the hype behind owning and or acquiring a vertical desk is massive. And here's what I mean. During during the pandemic, I can literally remember the demand was for, because kids were being homeschooled, the demand was for finding a desk for children. Like just finding a simple desk and a simple chair. And places were very sparse or sparse. I don't know how to pronounce it. It was hard to find them, basically. uh, Now here we are, 4 years later, and we're in a wonky dilemma because of a couple of reasons. One, a lot of people are, for lack of a better term, still in fully remote jobs. A lot of people, myself being one of them, are in hybrid roles. So hybrid forces you to balance that home and work thing, whether you realize it or not. You have some who had been remote through the pandemic, but companies are like, ho, 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 wait a minute, let's think about this. And they're having people come back into the office. So you're running into a dilemma without realizing you're running into a dilemma. And why that's relevant is because people have made home-based accommodations, and for lack of a better term, they no longer need them. And that's understandable. It comes with the territory. That's not really what we're facing and what the issue is. The issue is now the inventory that was invested in being fully at home or hybrid or whatever the case may be. I can fully recall when I had first joined my current company. If you know, you know. If you've listened to shows, you heard me talk about them. But when I first joined, hybrid was in existence, but we were not hybrid yet only because of not having equipment. And equipment accommodations happened over time. And what I mean by that is, I would say a few months after starting, they gave us the work from home PC, which I still have. Trying to set that up where I was a class show to say the least. Um, and so they had us, set up with those, and then they decided, which I like this option better personally. It's just an adjustment to say the least. We're now in docking stations. So the dock that I have is, they prefer hardwired, which everything's preferential. But I've noticed, especially with where and how I work, by it being just me who uses a lot of the internet, using Wi-Fi isn't the end of the world. Um, but bringing it back to the demand of the vertical desk, it's like at one point no one was touching them. No one wanted one because they were expensive. Now it's a wholesale free for all. And the reason it's become a wholesale free for all, plain and simple, is because companies are thinking with the right logic of, hey, maybe if I can sell 10 of these at a time, I'll make the money. And I think they've been making the money because any site that I've looked on, at least your non-mainstream sites, low, low quantity, very low quantity. And I personally like it that way. And I think too, whether people really realize it or not, you're sometimes forced to get something when you least expect that thing to be like a popping product, for lack of a better term. And that's kind of what happened in my opinion, that happened with the tables, the vertical desks, standing desks, whatever you want to call them, as well as the ergonomic chairs. There's one chair that I think did the girly thing, which I'm never against, which is they made um the chairs that were, I call it crisscross applesauce. And they basically allowed it so that you could sit in the chair comfortably. Like they had no one, it's a wider chair. It's a more friendly chair in the sense of um, it has no arms. And it's also, like I said, it's crisscross applesauce. So it gives you that option of like, if you want to sit Indian style in a chair, you can. And it's an inexpensive chair. My my preference or my pushback on them is I will get one, but I need to have the rolling wheels that I have on my current chair. I've used those wheels at least 3 or 4 years. And believe it or not, what makes them such good wheels is the simple fact that you sit in the chair. If you're on like a hard surface, the chair is gonna go. It's gonna go wherever it needs to go. So that in and of itself makes me enjoy that chair. So that's our, as odd as it is, that's our ergonomic rant for today. And I wanted to share that with you all. My other topic, which will be on this wallcast, is about expanding the writing horizon. I've thought about this a couple of times because I get notifications from them. I'm thinking about placing them on my allow list when I break my phone, and that is Substack. Um, Substack to me is like a forum based Reddit, but in blog format. And the reason I'm getting pulled into it is there are a good amount of creatives who I follow who use Substack as their source to write. Now, I remember this like it was yesteryear. So if I'm a little rusty talking about it, just mind your business. But there was an app called, or there was a site called Get Review, GETREVUE. And this site was um, very newsletter friendly. At the time, it was kind of like a new up and coming service. Personally, I think they were connected with Twitter to some degree, which we know how that all went, where Elon Musk came in, had his feels and his thoughts about it, and somehow, I'm not going to say he single handedly took Twitter down, but he really decreased the features that were beneficial to acquiring or having a Twitter account. Now, hear me out. I'm not, by far, I'm not against anyone having a verified account because I have one. But there are a lot of features and there's a lot of things that Twitter has available that it still just doesn't, it doesn't make the app appealing, plain and simple. There's no there's no two-stepping around it. Um, it's a clunky app. It's been a clunky app for years. Consumers who use it, you learn to get past certain gripes about an app because once you've realized, which basically is what happened with them, they lock themselves in and minimizing like API availability with third-party apps. Because there was one point, and many of my OG Twitter heads remember, where you could use any Twitter app and get Twitter to work in your favor. Well, now with more of the bells and whistles being added to Twitter, Twitter's trying to fulfill that infamous goal that I constantly talk about of, hey, you're on my app, but I need you to stay on my app a little longer. You've been on it for 2 hours. I need you on it for 3 days at least. And companies are very aware of their users. And I'm ranting about this with the Get Review part because Get Review was being connected with Twitter. Because like a lot of people were like, hey, subscribe to my newsletter, send my bio, and everybody was getting review accounts to set up. As fast as I created the account, probably a couple weeks in, gone, disappeared. I'm like, well, dang, this is like took all the fun. And if you've been following or keeping up with the newsletter journey that I've been on, I started my newsletter, the current one, almost a year ago. Now, full transparency, my Saturdays got a little hectic. So when I get up in the morning and I've done a walk, the last thing I'm thinking about is trying to go somewhere and do like my energy is able to do it, but it's a lot. And what I mean is getting up, doing a walk for three, 3 to 4 miles. And then after the walk, coming home, getting situated, showering, whatever, and then going back out to do a writing event, which I've loved the writing events. And even with it moving, where it moved to is the least of my issue. Not even going to make a finagle excuse with that part. But going, traveling to attend that. And then to top it off, right afterward, in many cases, I was doing my podcast. But there was one point which those who know can recall that I was doing weekly podcasts. The weekly podcast, and I'll acknowledge this real quick. The weekly podcast transitioned to bi-weekly or different weeks, strictly because I found that I would rather, if I'm going to do podcasting, I'm going to do podcasting at a very high peak. And that's just what it is. Um, not, I'm not the biggest wow factor to, and it's such a dilemma because sure, would I like to do FanDuel, Prize Picks, or any gambling sources to talk sports? Sure. I'm just not the best at calling a lot of that stuff. I learned that on opening night. Uh, but yeah, did the newsletter. Been doing the newsletter. Been sticking pretty consistent with the newsletter. But now I want to expand my palette a little bit with the newsletter and breaking it away from WordPress. And I still want to keep. I'm still going to keep the WordPress page going by far because I mean, why not? But I want to utilize other platforms to get the podcast. I mean, sorry, to get the newsletter up and at it. Uh, so dang, everybody, point eight. I was about to say I got point nine. I was like, dang, I'm moving this morning. Uh, but yeah, Substack looks like it might be getting a new member. I mean, I have an account. I follow a lot of writers. One of them, she's kind of pushed me a little bit in thinking about it. I just never actually thought of if I want to go that route yet. Her name is Martine Ellis. She's off. She's overseas. I can't remember exactly what country, but I followed her journey with writing and with content for quite some time. And her content, like a lot of us, it transitions. Hers transitioned where she was giving a lot of advice with podcasting. She gave a lot of advice um, with branding. She became now she's tied in with teaching. A lot of it now, from what I've watched or read, is productivity based. And I just realized this is super random, but it's super relevant. I don't listen to podcasts like I used to. So yesterday, and again, family. So I'm saying yesterday, but you're gonna hear this when I upload. But at one point, I started to observe uh the various, how can I put it? I started to observe the various things of what can or what causes burnout. And I've gone through my fair share, like obviously who hasn't, but I've really been, it's not been that I'm lazy because I I always, when something needs to be done, it gets done. That's like far from the issue or the concern. The concern more now has been trying to do the thing and not be tired from doing the thing. So really trying to find that balance between working hard, giving my best effort, and not burning out. And I say that or use that tone because let's face it, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I mean, I was a huge podcast advocate and listener. I think today is gonna be that day. We're gonna break that chain. Be it because I got both JBLs in my room where I'm normally working. I know we're doing code review, so I have something on to occupy the mind and go from there. But the the truth of the matter is, Substack is just more incentive to bring more attention and awareness to my ability and capability of writing. Because can't speak for anybody else, but writing has kind of been hardwired into my life. There is I guess you can call him a philosopher, philanthropist, rather, Jim Quick. Kept track of his content for a while. Had his first book, Limitless, gifted it. He made a second version based on AI. Have that one on my Kindle in the queue of hundreds in the Kindle graveyard, no pun intended. Of just because I have so many books sitting on there that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna read this book. Like The Alchemist has been waiting, and I've been like stalling with that. Um, but I start with that because he put up a visual or shared a visual about how much or how important reading is. And he said, we spent we spend 50% of our day or 4 hours of our day reading information at work. And that made me stop for a minute and really think about it. I had to go through my analytics because one of my coworkers went through hers, which caused me to go through mine of looking at like how many emails I've read, how many emails I've responded to, how much I'm like, because I'm one of those ones who, if it's stuff that I need and stuff that's important, I'm going to check it because it's good to know what could possibly impact me down the line. So I start with that because when he said that about the 4 hour thing, I had to stop for a minute and really think about how much information is being read or how much reading you're doing in general between Microsoft Teams. Like, as much as we hate Teams, and I'm not here to cause trouble, I'm just here to speak my mind. But there is a thing about Microsoft Teams for whatever reason where you open Teams and it's like like you're getting messages frequently and often. Um, but you have Teams messages popping up, you have emails that are coming in, you have research you're doing for your workload as a developer. That reading amount might be more because if you're doing code, you want to make sure the code's being done properly. It's a lot. Uh, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because it's important to consider how, even when we don't want to, it's good to get in the habit of reading more. And I'm personally guilty of holding books but not reading them. And I'm starting to come into acceptance that there's no benefit in adding to a book collection when I'm not doing anything with the books I currently have. Case in point, The Purpose Driven Life, I believe I'm on day 4. I should at least be on day 7 or day 8 by now when I started. But the reason that it hasn't been a smooth go with that is I will do multiple things, and then I'm looking at the book, and the book is looking at me, and we're having like this stare off in space until eventually I end up not reading the book. Last night, and some I think he referenced this. People have a habit of using books as a night routine to, like, hey, I'm gonna read this book and it's gonna help me wind down. Last night I got in my room. I didn't even attempt to reach over to turn on a light to read anything because I knew I was not gonna read it. I went to sleep. And something that's important to take into account is there are times in our lives we need to listen to our body. If our body is saying we are tired, take a nap, go to sleep. Like, one of my friends, her and I don't talk anymore. Well, we don't, yeah, we really don't talk anymore, hardly at all. But when we were in a relationship, she couldn't comprehend the concept of me being so big on like taking naps. She's like, "You take naps all the time." I'm like, "Because if I'm tired, I'm gonna take a nap." And this was when I was in my 20s. Like, a lot of habits and a lot of patterns I have now did not just happen overnight. Like, the 5 o'clock thing just became a thing only because of like how my schedule worked in my favor to do 5 o'clock. Um, Working a semi equivalent of 9 to 5 at the time when I first did it, it really gathered my whole schedule flow. And then coming into my current workflow, it was okay, this ain't that bad. Like I can do the 5 o'clock thing. And the importance of this, even when we doing these podcasts for you all or just doing them in general, this is still like my peace, a time of like calm, my time of like idle. I say idleness, but in reality, it's more of just my focus time. And I can openly say that people, and this is something that is such a harsh yet honest reality. People don't like not having access to you the way they want to have access to you because if you're doing things that don't consist of what they got going on and you're doing better for yourself, they are understanding of it to a degree, but it's only going to be seen when it's the other way around. And that's going to go over somebody's head. But if it didn't, or if you don't understand, let me break it down. We like our time for ourselves. Others don't like our time for ourselves because that means time is being taken away from them and what they have going on. Now, everyone is not like this. Many people do have a tendency to be pretty considerate and aware of this idea, but it's far and few between. And why I'm talking about this a little bit is because at one point, and most people don't even say it anymore because I think now they just understand. I used to get the craziest, not reactions, but interactions of like, Brian, I don't see how you get so much done and so much going on all at one time. And I'm like, listen, I have to remember what I'm doing this for and who I'm doing this for and why I'm doing it. I'm doing this for me. The reason why I'm doing it is because I want to be a better me. And how I do it is because can't nobody else do it. Can't nobody else get up for me to get me to start my day. Can't nobody else get up and have me go for a walk. Like when, and it's odd analogy, but slow walk with me on this one. When pets need to go for a walk or if they need to go handle a business, they are not able to do so without their master or their trainer or their adult companion, whatever term you all use for that, without them taking them to do that thing. As human beings, if you have no friends that are getting up when you're getting up to do things, who's holding you responsible to do that thing? You. You are your own accountability source. And for a lot of people, myself being one of them, that can be very terrifying. I'm going down a super random rabbit hole, but hopefully it's all intertwined and making sense in some manner. But you have to be your own factor of I know what I need to get done. I know what it looks like. I know how I'll be able to handle it. And sometimes, and as hard as it is to say this, everybody ain't gonna go where you trying to go. And you cannot make it your job or your effort to pull people with you. I don't remember who I was having this conversation with. But I can remember them being so adamant about, oh, I'm doing this and I got this going. And I'm trying to get everybody with me to do this, this, and this. And it's like, no, it don't work like that. Like you can't think of yourself pulling folks along. I do remember I had this combo with. But You can't pull everybody with your process. That's not fair to you. That's not fair to them. They might not want to go. They might not be ready to go. They might have stuff on. People need to be aware of. They need to be aware of the awareness. And I think sometimes we're not as aware of the awareness because we're ignoring things that's going on. I use this phrase a lot and people hear it, but they don't think about it. Real time is real time. There's no modified way to acknowledge real time. Real time happens in real time, literally. Like as you're going through things, things are happening. Quick sidebar while I'm thinking about it too. I will say that I'm very proud of myself for my writing uh, improvements because there was one point that genuinely and wholeheartedly was struggling to get stuff written down. Although this week has been an adjustment of the fully at home thing, it's been appreciative because I've had more time to sit and just write or sit and just get ideas out. Um, it's a it's a dilemma without being a dilemma, and I share this time and time again. Using apps like Notion, Cortex, when it was a thing, Evernote, like it's good to have those resources, but I'm more appreciative of the multiple pens that I have available or the multiple um, notebooks that I can go to when I need to get a thought down real quick. And in the moment, it's like you don't think much of it, but in the aftermath, it's like, ah. So this is why I'm very accustomed and very attached to the pen and paper avenue. Like I haven't read the book in a while, but the book I had, Level Up, probably was one of my favorite books and still is one of my favorite books because there was a lot of people, and I get it. There's a back and forth about this all the time. A lot of folks don't like self-help books, and I 100% respect that. But not even to blindly play devil's advocate, but also to be real, I personally am not a big fan of. Um, I don't like. Um, I don't like a lot of fiction. I can do fiction to some degree, but sometimes fiction can get too fictiony to the point where I'm like, all right, are you giving me real or you just throwing me game? Like, pick a side. That might be why when it comes to gaming, I'm real meticulous in what I play. Because yeah, ideas and thoughts are things, but sometimes you just really don't want that to be the rumbling or rambling thought you're having about said thing. By the way, shout out to the wind. It's today it won't this is not a cold walk, it was a calm walk. And I use calm loosely, but I use it in a good loosely reference because it literally has been like just calm and chill vibes. All is, no pun intended, falling. There's quite a bit of brushery, aka leaves, outside for today's or for this year's fall slash autumn slash pumpkin spice, which another random side note, I don't get it and I'm not judging it, But pumpkin spice or just pumpkin flavored stuff does not have the same thrill to me as it does for everybody else. A lot of folks hate sweet potato pie, and I'm like, I understand. But I'm also just not, I'm very whelmed, very whelmed by pumpkin pie. Um, as we near the holidays, as we near internal and external grief, I want people to take time and really look within and be patient. Be patient with yourself. I say this a lot. Be kind to yourself. Don't don't spend a lot of time looking at what you didn't do. And I've shared this on the podcast before, but I'm gonna share it hoping that someone hears this and really takes time to do it. If you have a dry erase board, do it on a dry erase board. If you have a piece of paper and pen it. You want to go the digital route, totally fine too. But what I want you to do is I want you to stop and look at, write down everything that you do in a day, like everything. It's showering, brushing teeth, the drive, the workload, the calls, the scrolling, everything. And I'm sharing this with you all, but I'm gonna do it myself because I need to do it for not even for scientific purposes, but for genuine like unpacking purposes. I want you to look at those things, and I want you to be very detailed in all of the stuff that you do. I don't care how many pages it takes up, but write it all down. And I want you to start thinking about how many of those things are worth doing. How many of those things are you just doing because you feel like you're obligated to have to do it? And I know it's gonna sound strange, but it's a reason I'm having you look at this. I'm gonna talk about this more in my next podcast, but I want you all to really take time and like really look at what you do or how your day looks. Because many times as people, we're so busy, but is it that we're busy or is it that we look busy? There's a big difference between the two. Many times we're authentically busy, and there's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing invalid to feel or be that way. But sometimes, are we truly as busy as we're putting ourselves out there to be? And is it the source of our burnout or our stress? And we don't know. So I want y'all to take time and look at that today and also just be aware of your routines and your processes and begin to unravel it all. And as I donned and shared the message from my friend Wyatt, make it make sense. And once it makes sense, it'll go where it's intended to go and you'll be able to handle it accordingly. I appreciate y'all always for tuning in. Love on yourself, be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself. Don't make the process more than what it needs to be. 100% truth, it's not worth it. Speaking from experience, it's not worth it. Knowing what you're intended to do, it's not worth it. uh, and you'll get where you need to go. But until next time, this BT signing out. Peace.
Truly hope you all enjoyed the show. Definitely was a lot to unpack, but I know you'll walk away with something important. As I share at the end of each season, do find your way to get into podcasting if it's something you would like to do. My podcasts are currently recorded via Buzzsprout. Been very good to me. If you want to learn more about using them, definitely hit me up at thepastbtpod@gmail.com. And also the microphone that you're hearing me on is the Blue Yeti X. Have been rolling with it for over 3 years. We've been doing this ride for quite some time, so I hope someone could find this mic useful.
Again, find those people who are good or helpful in what you're trying to do to be better today than you were yesterday. The primary goal is to be 1% better. Hope you all have an amazing day, and we'll be back again to do this next time.